It's a huge pleasure to follow Alison and all of our speakers, spokespeople and candidates, and to be able to have the chance to welcome so many of you to conference. Normally I would just say thank you, Alison, but because we happen to know it's your birthday weekend, happy birthday, Alison, as well. Yeah, why not?
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday to you.
Should I do that? I said. Will she not be a bit embarrassed? Yeah, she'll totally love it. Do that. That's what they said. Have a wonderful weekend, Alison. What a year we have had, though. It's been extraordinary. The membership of the Scottish Green Party had been growing substantially through the European campaign, but the incredible surge in membership that came on the back of the referendum was kind of bewildering. And last year, we were turning people away from our conference in huge numbers. That was so frustrating. It's great to be able to welcome so many of you here today, and to know that since then, we've begun turning all of that new energy and enthusiasm into campaigning capacity right around the country. Our vote went up in every single Westminster constituency that we contested this year. That's something that I don't think many people imagined would happen given the scale of the SNP's expectations, but we're showing that the Green vote is growing out there in Scotland right around the country. So thank you to our Westminster candidates and everyone who got out there and campaigned for them. And we're seeing terrific results in local by-elections as well. There were a couple more in Highlands and Islands just this week. What was it, nearly 10% in one of them, John? Over 5% in the other, both in wards that we've never contested before. So well done to Highlands and Islands and to the Western Isles for putting their first candidates forward. And to all of you who've been part of those campaigns around the country, it bodes well, not just for next year, but for 2017 as well. I normally do some thank yous as well to our own staff, because working with not just Alison and John Finney, but John Wilson as well in the parliamentary group, and all of our staff, we couldn't do a fraction of what we do without the support of our many staff. You'll have the chance, hopefully, to meet some of them during the weekend. But this year, we've also got to thank a growing list of party staff. Normally, it's one or two names, and I can remember them. I've had to write them down this time. So thank you to the party's own employees, Scott, Laura, Stuart, Eva, Ross, Louise, and Pete. Thank you so much for joining the team and for doing what's necessary to build us forward. Conference, you couldn't have imagined that the party would grow so dramatically, so quickly, without some stresses and strains. It's been really tough scaling up on that pace, trying to meet the expectations of our new members, trying to develop shared expectations about how we work. There have been stresses and strains, but I'm so proud of everybody who's helped bring us through that and make sure that we're ready to contest next year's election. And I want to ask all of you, from the Western Isles down to Dumfries and Galloway, from the Central Belt to the Northeast, let us demonstrate to our new members, to our many supporters around the country, that Greens are cooperators. Greens are pulling together to work together to deliver the best result that we've ever done in Scotland in a Scottish Parliament election next year. That's the job that we've got ahead of us. It's our moment of opportunity, and we can't afford to let down the many people who've brought us to this point. There was an incredible sense of participation, inclusiveness through that referendum campaign. And that's one of the things that drew people into politics, into democratic participation, whether they joined a political party, whether they put a leaflet through a door, whether they took part in discussion and debate in their own community. And there was a deep frustration that I think Maggie and I both shared. We were right to take part in the Smith Commission. The party put forward constructive, good ideas and got some of them adopted, and the Scottish Parliament would be stronger because of our participation in the Smith Commission. But we said from the outset that it was failing to be that inclusive, participative process that Scotland needed. We shouldn't have allowed power to be sucked back from the community, sucked back from the population into political parties and into parliaments again. We can't allow that to be the future of our democracy. So we say that the question of independence may well be put again, but let's say that the people of Scotland are in charge of that. We've proposed a citizens' initiative so that it's the public who say when they're ready for that question to be put, not political parties carving up a deal behind closed doors. That's the kind of inclusive, participative politics that Greens should be proud to represent. We do, of course, as Ross said, have another referendum to fight before that. The question of our future in or out of the European Union is going to be put to us. I think during the independence vote, Greens should be proud, all of us should be proud of the tone that we struck. We showed that actually it's okay to disagree about a question like this, and to disagree in a spirit of respect and friendship. There might be disagreements on the question of Europe within the Greens. We should demonstrate again that it's possible to take part in a debate like that in a spirit of friendship and respect. Thank you. Because the danger is that this debate becomes another one which polarizes and drives division in our society. As Ross said, we cannot permit the right wing, the hostile, the divisive rhetoric of austerity, the absurd, fanatic ideology of the free market to define both yes and no in that referendum. We need to be the ones standing up for a progressive vision of a social and environmental Europe. That's something that I don't think we can afford to lose. That's something I don't think we can afford to put at risk. And it's absolutely something which cannot be allowed to be silent during that referendum campaign. We have a critical voice and a critical role to play in that campaign. And I think that we need to win it if we want to make sure that Scotland has a chance to participate collectively on the common challenges that Europe faces, which require common action. Obviously, the one that's made people feel so powerless sometimes, I guess, is the humanitarian crisis which has been growing inside the EU and beyond the EU. This is something which undeniably requires common action between countries. It's common action that the UK government seems at the moment unwilling even to countenance. Not just unwilling to countenance, but willing to exploit, willing to tell the lie that it's immigrants or refugees and asylum seekers who put pressure on our public services, on our infrastructure. What an outright lie, what a despicable lie. It's the UK government itself, by undermining those services, by robbing the country of the investment that it needs, which is putting pressure on them. And in what I think must count as the most despicable speech I have ever heard from a UK political party conference, Theresa May showed last week just how willing the Tories are to tell that lie and to blame some of the most vulnerable people in our society for the pressures they themselves are creating for all of us. It's a lie that cannot be allowed to stand. So common action on that humanitarian crisis, that refugee crisis, is absolutely vital. An urgent message, a clear message must come. And I think the Greens are one of the most important voices to have said this, both south of the border with Caroline and Natalie in the Green Party of England and Wales, and ourselves, sending a clear signal. Refugees are welcome here, and we're proud to say so. We have many other common challenges here at home and throughout Europe and the world which require common action. The climate crisis is perhaps one that motivates this party more than any other party, and I don't think we should be ashamed to say that we have a role in holding others to account for action promised and not delivered. Just a week or so ago, I think maybe 10 days ago, the voice challenging other political parties to acknowledge the carbon bubble, the economic vulnerability which is growing through the overvaluation of fossil fuel industries. Industries which are broadly valued as though all of their reserves will be turned into economic resource, when we know that the world has 4 or 5 times more of this stuff than we can afford to burn if we're remotely serious about our survival, let alone our prosperity. So that is a hugely overvalued industry. It's an economic bubble, and the voice calling that out was not the Green Party, was not Greenpeace or Friends of the Earth. It was not some pressure group easily dismissed by those in power. It was Mark Carney, the Governor of the Bank of England, for goodness sake. If the Governor of the Bank of England is willing, finally, to start acknowledging the climate crisis and the economic crisis and vulnerability that it exposes us to, then surely now is a time of opportunity that we must grasp to demonstrate that a transition is urgent, is possible, and offers us the chance of a fairer, more decent, and more humane society as well. So he told Lloyds and a group of bankers and insurers that if we don't address this, if we don't reduce our reliance, our overexposure to the carbon bubble, then financial instability will result. And what is it? Post-cyclical crystallization of losses. Anybody else know what that means? I think he means it's bad. Post-cyclical crystallization of losses. We are the ones, I think, who have a responsibility to translate that kind of nonsense into real language, into ideas and practical policies that will impact on people's lives throughout Scotland and around the rest of the world, making sure that climate change is not just a threat, not just something for people to wag your finger and say, you're to do without this, you're to do without that, but actually an opportunity, a positive opportunity for something better, for a better life for all of us. Because that fairer, more equal economy that we need to build is the one which will come into alignment with the environmental limits, bring us finally into the acknowledgement that we've got to live within the limits that the Earth sets down for us, not behave as though we have another 2 or 3 planets to flee to. The transition paper that we published just recently, demonstrating the hundreds of thousands of jobs in the new economy which are possible in Scotland, vastly outnumbering those that might be lost from the industries which are coming to their end. This is an opportunity that we can't afford to pass up. This isn't just a challenge. This isn't just a problem. This is a huge opportunity that Scotland is currently missing. Let's take an example from Mark's region, Longannet. We've known for years and years and years that Longannet was coming to the end of its life. Now, whether you see that simply as an opportunity to stop burning coal and reduce our emissions, or whether you see that as the loss of the livelihoods of people in that community, both of these things are true. And so the responsible thing should have been for government, nationally and locally, and the industry to work together for the last 10 years or more of that plant's life to generate investment and alternatives for that local community. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. So now we know the plant is going to close a year or 2 before expected. That's not good enough just to say, well, now we'll set up a program to look at redeploying and reskilling those workers. That's not good enough. That investment should have been in there for years before that moment of crisis came. The risk we are running in Scotland at the moment is that we do that to our entire country by remaining overexposed to this carbon bubble, by running an economy which is not only chronically unfair, but which is unsustainable. We need to be investing in the alternative now, building those opportunities for people before that moment of crisis comes. And I find it astonishing. That a government which is so committed to patriotism and to love of country. Frankly, patriotism bores me personally. I don't care much for flags of either kind. But I find it astonishing that a government which is so committed to love of country is willing to run this risk with the country's future by remaining dependent on this outgoing economic model. That's not a risk that I think we can afford to run. We also need to be looking at the creation of new economic structures at a local level. And I want to pay tribute at this point to Andy Whiteman, who's representing our party on the Commission on Local Tax Reform. We all know that the council tax has had its day. We all know it's rubbish. We all know it's unfair. We all know it's creaking at the seams. But actually, as well as those things, we're missing the opportunity for a radically different kind of economics at local level, for not just the generation of revenue to pay for and protect public services, which are so much at threat at the moment, but to put economic policies in place at a local level which are right for local circumstances, to ensure that we see the investment in the housing, in the infrastructure, in all of the other priorities that we need. And so out of this commission, which is due to report soon and which Andy is working hard on, we need to ensure that Scottish voters next year see the opportunity to radically decentralise economic power in our society and make sure that we've got local government that is not only local for a change, but is actually able to exercise the powers of government as well, which it currently cannot do. That's the way that we can create new economic opportunities and investment in the alternatives to come for the future. The contrast of that vision with the stale and tired economic model which is still running, where the UK government, which obsesses about public debt, only about public debt. Have you ever noticed that? They're failing to address the low productivity in the UK's economy. And so if you reduce public debt, the only consequence is that private debt will continue to mushroom. And private debt's more expensive, it leaves people more vulnerable, and it's already far bigger than public debt. This is not a responsible approach to economics. It's not even an approach to economics. It's continuing this lie that says the national economy is like your personal balance sheet, like your personal household finances. This isn't economics, it's merely accountancy, and we need to see through this nonsense and build an economic programme for Scotland which creates investment in the alternatives that we need. Housing is one of the most urgent ones. We can't afford to let another generation find themselves with owner occupation unaffordable, social rented housing unavailable, and left at the mercy of private rented landlords, some of whom are good, some of whom are decent people, doing a decent service and charging a decent rent, but too many of whom are gouging tenants and seeing rents spiral out of all proportion, even at a time of low interest rates when the debt held on those properties is cheap debt. This is unacceptable in our society. We should be the ones saying decent housing for all is not just a priority, it's a human right for every one of our citizens, and we need to be building it, but also making sure that the way the property market operates benefits those who need housing rather than merely benefits those who can make a fast buck with a few back-to-back deals. Naming no names. Look, the opportunity that we've got next year is astonishing. We're not going to be able to deliver on any of these priorities unless we also focus on skilling Scotland up, to invest in the renewable energy, to invest in the housing, to invest in all of these other priorities, as well as the public services that we need. We need Scotland to be skilled up. And it's great to know that university education is still free without tuition fees, but our colleges have suffered. And even the apprenticeship programme, which has increased in recent years, has seen no contribution really at all to the energy efficiency programme, which is so urgent. So what we're going to be arguing for over the next couple of months as the Scottish Government prepares its budget is to commit to 6,500 new apprenticeships in the energy efficiency programme, which is so urgent, to tackle fuel poverty, to create jobs and opportunities, and to reduce Scotland's carbon emissions. That's a priority that Scottish Government should be willing to listen to if they're serious about giving effect to the commitment they gave to Alison when she challenged them successfully to make energy efficiency a national infrastructure priority. You don't get to call it that without backing it up with the resources, without doing the work that's involved and creating the jobs that are staring us in the face as that new opportunity. So 6,500 apprenticeships on energy efficiency should be the beginning of our ambition on this scale and not the end of it. I think Greens have a terrific story to tell about the track record that we've had since devolution began. We've had an elected parliamentary presence at every single Scottish Parliament election. And whether we've had one voice or many in the Scottish Parliament, I think we've punched above our weight. I think we've achieved far more than many people might have predicted when they first saw that a Green MSP had been elected back in 1999. Just in the last week or so, we've seen the Scottish Government shift position on rent controls. They initially were very hostile to the idea when we first proposed it. We said that we need some initial options, some consultation options, at least be open to the question of rent controls, and they weren't interested. NUS and Shelter have campaigned hard on this as well as many other individuals and communities around the country. Just this last week or so, they've finally given ground and published a bill that includes the beginnings of proposals. They need to be strengthened, but the beginnings of proposals on rent controls. We should be proud of the pressure we brought to bear. In the same week, after pressure from Greens, from campaigners, communities, NGOs, and from some of their own members, they finally extended the fracking moratorium to cover underground coal gasification. That wouldn't be happening without Green pressure. The first time we got a chance to sit down with them and talk about a budget back in the happy days of minority government when they actually had to compromise, the first concession we got was a climate challenge fund which has now helped communities, dozens and dozens of communities up and down the length and breadth of the country, to put their own creative solutions in place and to turn climate change from a threat into an opportunity. And just this year as well, we've seen Alison Johnson campaigning to ensure that football clubs are no longer commercial playthings, but that fans actually have the opportunity to take ownership for the community of their football clubs. Alison managed to persuade the parliamentarians of a number of parties to back that proposal, finally putting the Scottish Government on the spot and making sure that they've come forward with a consultation on that as well. That we've got legislation through to make that happen. We need to now keep on putting pressure on them to ensure that they deliver on that priority. We've got a huge opportunity as well to challenge all of the other parties, but to do so constructively. I think that's an important part of the track record, an important part of why we've managed to turn good ideas into progress, even from the position of a small opposition party. That constructive challenge, never being afraid to look them in the eye and say, we don't believe you on this promise, when we don't think this is good enough, you need to go further. But always willing to do it constructively, to give credit where credit is due, and to make sure that we can work together on common ground. Some political parties only focus on the points of ideological difference, and they fall out and they can't stay together and become coherent. I think it's really important that Greens remain people who focus on the common ground, never give up on challenging where others have got it wrong, but work together on the common ground to achieve progress for Scotland. That's the way that we've engaged in the Scottish Parliament. That's the way we should continue to. But when we look at the other political parties, we do need to ask ourselves what we see. Well, with the Labour Party, I guess it's interesting to see a Labour leader who probably agrees with us on more than he agrees with his own parliamentary party. It's curious. And there will be many in Labour who helped bring that about, who sense a moment of hope and optimism in their own party, and I can understand that. And if they have a chance to turn that tanker around, I wish them well. But it remains to be seen whether they're going to be able to do that against the might of a party machine that already is plotting against them. We look at the Liberal Democrats, if you remember them, the party who billed themselves this year as militant for reasonable people. Believe it or not, that was actually a slogan on their website, militant for reasonable people. It sounds as though they are as confused as the rest of us about what they even stand for anymore. We look at the Conservatives. Well, at least you know what you're getting. They're not asking you to vote for a pig in a poke. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one either, but, you know, couldn't resist. But no, you do know what you're getting. What you're getting is an outright assault on the things that, in many ways, this country should be proudest of. The the inheritance of a generation that built a welfare state to be proud of, built a national health service, transformed society, and had the optimism to believe that politics could make society a better place. And the Conservatives are continuing an all-out, full frontal assault on that proud inheritance. I don't think we should be willing to permit that to happen, and I don't think Scotland will give them any chance of making progress in the next election, but we need to make sure that we're exposing them for precisely what they are. And then there's the SNP. And I think they have a mixed record. I honestly do. It is, as I said earlier, terrific to know that university education doesn't carry a tuition fee in Scotland. Other parts of these islands can't say that. I think that's a terrific achievement. But it has come at the cost of the colleges which create the opportunities for many, many more people who don't see university as right for them or don't feel that they have the path in there. Colleges are a critical part of our education system and deserve to be better supported than they have been. It is good to see the SNP talking a good game on opposing austerity. But let's not forget that this is a party which, until very, very recently, was still calling for ever deeper corporate tax cuts. And as Mark Ruskell mentioned, this is a party which still allows tax dodgers, tax avoiders, an opportunity to influence policy and to influence and access public services and grants from the taxpayer in this country. If we're going to talk a good game on austerity, let's put that into practice fully by saying that there is no place for such devious, manipulative and exploitative tax avoidance practices in Scotland. They've set and remained committed to ambitious targets on climate change, but every single one of them so far has been missed. They've done well at increasing the installation of renewable electricity capacity, but they remain committed to another 40 or 50 years of oil and gas extraction. Fergus Ewing, the fire only comes into his eyes when he talks about the fact that there's more oil still under the North Sea than we've ever had out of it yet. That's not something that we can allow to stand unchallenged. Our role as Greens has to be to challenge this and to do so in a way that gives Scotland the confidence to know that there is an opportunity for change, an opportunity for a fairer, better, more lasting economy, and it's Green ideas that will put that into practice. Over the next day or two, you and we all are going to debate those ideas. In a few minutes, you're going to go off to start taking part in the fringe meetings and the discussions and the policy workshops and so on. As well as that, as well as those meetings, we do want to remain committed to our identity as a democratic party. And so we're also launching, I'm hoping it's over here somewhere. It's not. I can't find it. We're launching a consultation on our manifesto. For the next 2 weeks, not just you here at this conference, this isn't your final opportunity to debate policy motions and to discuss the ideas ahead of us. Over the next couple of weeks, we're asking you also to reach out to people right throughout the community, whether they're Green members or not, whether they're Green supporters yet or not. If they're interested in helping put together the ideas that will shape our manifesto, we want to hear those voices, and we want to make sure that we bring together the strongest manifesto possible over the next couple of weeks. So you'll receive an email sometime this week. I know some of you feel you get too many emails from the party, but this will be one of the most important. We want you to share that message, that invitation to people to contribute to our manifesto development. We want you to take the energy from this conference and take it out into every community, because we're not going to give effect to all of these great ideas. We're not going to see these fantastic candidates enter Parliament unless you and many, many others get out there, campaign, and take the energy and the ideas into every community. This and more could be our new parliamentary group. This and more is the group of people who can take these ideas and put them into practice for all of Scotland. That's the opportunity that we've never faced in the Scottish Green Party, is not only to know that we've got the good ideas, but to have the capacity to get out there and campaign like we've never done before. That's what we need you to do, every one of you, and all of those who weren't able to make it to the conference as well. Take those ideas, take that energy, get out there, campaign, make sure that we turn Scotland green and that we deliver green MSPs for every single part of Scotland. Every voter in Scotland needs to know that they can elect green MSPs, and they will next year with your help. Thank you all very much.